What happens when one of Hollywood's most intense performers is put on the spot by a morning show host who thinks he can push him around? You're about to hear one of the rawest exchanges ever broadcast live. And trust me, the way this escalates is something you don't want to miss. Stick around. It gets heated fast. So there's Tom Hardy sitting across from George Stephanopoulos on Good Morning America. Right from the start, you can feel it, that subtle, heavy tension in the room. Hardy's there to talk about his newest project, but Stephanopoulos clearly has something else in mind. Tom looks, as he often does, understated but sharp. Black jacket, nothing flashy, but if you look at his eyes, you can tell he's not in the mood for small talk. "Tom, thanks for being here this morning," Stephanopoulos begins, flashing that practiced morning show grin. He opens politely enough, but then pivots almost immediately. "Your new film's pulling in glowing reviews, but before we get to that, I want to ask you something else first." Hardy leans back slightly, his jaw tightening just enough to be noticed. "All right, George. Go ahead." And here's where it turns. Stephanopoulos brings up Hardy's comments about method acting, linking them to mental health concerns. He claims some critics believe Hardy's approach is irresponsible. On live TV, the word lands like a hammer. Hardy's reaction is instant, not explosive, but cold, precise. His eyes narrow as if to say, did he really just go there? This wasn't supposed to be an ambush. "Irresponsible," Hardy repeats, his tone calm but with that unmistakable sharp edge. "That's an interesting choice of words, George. Care to explain what exactly you mean?" Stephanopoulos leans forward, thinking he has the upper hand. He rattles off that mental health advocates have criticized Hardy for diving too deep into dark roles, glamorizing unhealthy behavior. Hardy cuts him off. "And you agree with them?" His Birmingham accent slips through as his temper rises. "I'm the one asking questions here," Stephanopoulos insists. "What do you say to parents who might be worried about young actors following your example?" There's a pause, long enough for the studio audience to feel it. Hardy just stares at him. The silence stretches, and then, quietly but firmly, Hardy says, "Parents should be worried, George. But not about me. They should be worried about hosts who come to interviews unprepared, throwing accusations based on hearsay and gossip." That one lands. Stephanopoulos' smile flickers. "Tom, I don't think that's fair. We're just trying to have an honest conversation." "Honest?" Hardy laughs once, but it's not friendly. "George, if you wanted honesty, you'd have told my team you plan to come at me with this. You'd have done some actual research instead of reading off talking points from a teleprompter. But that's not what this is it?" Stephanopoulos presses again, insisting the audience deserves to hear Hardy respond to legitimate concerns. Hardy leans forward. "Your viewers deserve better than tabloid tricks dressed up as journalism." His voice stays measured, but the storm underneath is obvious. "Tell me something, George. When was the last time you actually studied method acting? When did you speak to real mental health professionals about its benefits? Or did your producers just hand you a list of half-baked notes?" Stephanopoulos pushes back. "I think you're being defensive." "Defensive?" Hardy repeats, incredulous. "Mate, I got up at 5 in the morning to talk about a film I poured myself into, and instead you're trying to score a gotcha moment by twisting my words out of context. That's not being defensive. That's called having standards." The back and forth gets tighter. Stephanopoulos says, "The quotes speak for themselves." "Do they?" Hardy shoots back. "Which quotes exactly?" "Go on, cite them, word for word," and then comes the silence. Stephanopoulos looks down at his notes, shuffles papers, stalls. The cameras catch it. He can't produce a single direct quote, just vague references to several interviews. Hardy doesn't let up. "So you can't name a single journalist, a single publication, or even the exact words I supposedly used. Yet you sit here telling millions of viewers that I'm irresponsible? That's not journalism, George. That's character assassination." By now, the studio feels like it's holding its breath. Crew members glance nervously at one another. The cameras keep rolling. Stephanopoulos tries to pivot back to Hardy's film, but Hardy isn't letting him off. No, George. We're not moving on until you answer for this. You just accused me of endangering young actors, of glamorizing mental instability, but you can't even name one professional critic or mental health advocate who said so. Not one. Do you realize you're doing exactly what you accuse me of? Damaging reputations with nothing but smoke and vague claims? The tension is unbearable. Stephanopoulos squirms, insisting producers research the issue. Your producers? Hardy says, almost pitying now. George, how many years have you been in journalism? And this is how you do it? Hiding behind anonymous critics and nameless articles. This isn't reporting, it's gossip. And worse, it's lazy gossip. Stephanopoulos snaps back, Tom, I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being ambushed on live television by someone who couldn't be bothered to check a single fact, Hardy fires back. You invited me here to talk about my work. Instead, you opened with an attack you can't even back up. That's not hosting. That's entrapment. The audience is silent. You can practically hear the hum of the studio lights. Stephanopoulos insists Hardy is overreacting. Hardy lowers his voice, which somehow makes it even more menacing. George, you accused me of harming young actors. You implied I was reckless with mental health. You painted me as a dangerous influence, and you did all of this with zero evidence. How would you react if someone tried that with your reputation? Stephanopoulos stammers, these are legitimate questions about celebrity responsibility. Based on what? Hardy cuts in. Show me a study. Show me an expert opinion. Show me anything besides your producer's vague interpretation of what someone might have said about something I supposedly did. The host glances down at his notes again, clearly buying time. The concerns have been raised in various media outlets. Various media outlets, Hardy repeats slowly. George, do you even hear yourself? You sound like a politician dodging a corruption charge. It's been reported. Sources say, people are concerned. These are weasel words. This is how people talk when they're making things up. Stephanopoulos bristles. I'm not making anything up. Then prove it. Right here. Right now. On air. One specific example. But Stephanopoulos can't do it. The silence drags, and the audience knows they're witnessing something you rarely see on live TV, a guest refusing to play along. Finally, Stephanopoulos mutters, I think we're spending too much time on this. No, Hardy says firmly, we're spending exactly the right amount of time. You made accusations against my professional integrity, and now you're trying to duck out the moment you're asked to defend them. That's not how this works. The sweat on Stephanopoulos' forehead is visible now. Our research team compiled information from multiple sources. Compiled information? Hardy interrupts. George, that's corporate speak. That's not an answer. That's you hiding behind your team the same way you're hiding behind anonymous critics and vague references. Either admit you don't have anything solid or give me the evidence. Stop trying to play it both ways. The host looks off camera, clearly hoping for help from producers, but Hardy doesn't let him breathe. Your viewers deserve better than this. They deserve hosts who actually research their questions instead of tossing around tabloid rumors. They deserve journalism that can back itself up with facts, not half-truths. You're being very aggressive, Stephanopoulos says, trying to regain control. I'm being precise, Hardy snaps back. There's a difference. You came at me with accusations. Now I'm asking you to back them up. That's not aggression, that's accountability. The studio audience is locked in, captivated, and uncomfortable at the same time. This isn't morning TV anymore. It's a live confrontation. Stephanopoulos tries again, softening his tone. Tom, let's have a productive conversation. We could have had one, Hardy replies, if you'd asked about my work instead of building a fake controversy to go viral. But you made your choice, George. Now we're here. The host tries a new angle. Don't you think celebrities have a responsibility when speaking publicly about sensitive topics? Hardy pauses, eyes locked on him. Of course they do. And journalists have a responsibility to prepare properly for interviews. Hosts have a responsibility not to blindside their guests with loaded nonsense. Networks have a responsibility to maintain integrity. Do you feel you've done that today, George? Stephanopoulos insists the show maintains high standards. Hardy doesn't blink. High standards? Your audience is watching you throw out accusations without evidence, ask questions based on research you didn't do, and then run when you're asked to back it up. Is that your definition of standards? The mask is slipping. Stephanopoulos' composure is breaking. Tom, you're being difficult. Difficult? Hardy leans forward, his voice sharp. You ambushed me with baseless accusations on live television, and you think I'm difficult because I demand facts. What exactly did you think would happen? I expected a professional conversation, Stephanopoulos blurts out. Then you should have acted like a professional, Hardy fires back. You should have prepared. You should have asked real questions instead of tabloid bait. By now, the host is visibly rattled. He looks around the set like he wants someone to cut to commercial. I think we need to wrap this up, he says finally. Oh, now you want to wrap it up? Hardy asks, voice heavy with sarcasm. After 10 minutes of attacking my integrity with nothing to back it up, now you suddenly care about time. Stephanopoulos says, we have limited time. And you wasted it, Hardy answers coldly. You wasted it chasing a controversy that doesn't exist. That was your choice, George. The studio is frozen. No one knows what to do. The air is thick, the silence deafening. Finally, Stephanopoulos pleads, Tom, please tone it down. Hardy's voice drops, softer but deadlier. Tone it down. George, you question my integrity on your platform in front of millions of people, and when I demand you back it up, you tell me to tone it down? Do you understand how insulting that is? I'm just trying to keep this civil, Stephanopoulos insists. Civil? Hardy lets out a bitter laugh. There's nothing civil about ambushing someone with accusations you can't prove. There's nothing civil about slandering a guest for ratings. There's nothing civil about pretending this is journalism. The host is sweating heavily now, clearly losing the fight. His words stumble as he tries to defend himself. Hardy doesn't let go. Explain it, George. Explain to your viewers why you brought me here under false pretenses, why you thought it was acceptable to accuse me without fact-checking, why you think repeating gossip counts as journalism. Go on, explain it. Stephanopoulos mutters something about asking important questions about celebrity influence. Hardy shakes his head. No, you're not asking important questions. You're manufacturing drama for ratings. That's what this is. And when you get called out, you hide behind phrases like responsibility and raising concerns. It's weak, and it's dishonest. By now, the camera catches Stephanopoulos looking completely defeated, but Hardy isn't finished. George, let me ask you something. Do you have kids? That's not relevant. I think it is. Do you have children who might watch this interview, kids who might see how you conduct yourself? Stephanopoulos shifts uncomfortably. Tom, please. Because if you do, what are you teaching them right now? That it's okay to make accusations without evidence? That it's okay to ambush people with lies and call it journalism? That when you're exposed, you can just tell the other person to tone it down and move on? Is that the lesson? The host looks off camera again, pleading with producers to cut to break. I think we should take a break. Hardy sits up straighter. A break? You don't get to take a break from accountability, George. You don't get to throw dirt on someone's reputation and then walk away when you're asked to justify it. And then Stephanopoulos, clearly panicked, blurts out, Security? The studio gasps. Hardy blinks in disbelief. Security? You're calling security on me? For what? For asking you to back up your own questions with facts? This is unreal. The guards begin to move toward the stage. Hardy shakes his head slowly, stunned. This is what journalism has become, folks. When a host gets called out for sloppy research, instead of owning up, they call security. One of the security guards steps forward, his voice calm but firm. Tom, you need to calm down. Hardy swivels his head toward him, then back at Stephanopoulos. Calm down? I'm sitting here in my chair, speaking in full sentences, asking for basic journalistic standards. What exactly do I need to calm down from? The host has lost every ounce of composure. He blurts, "Remove him from the set." Hardy doesn't flinch. On what grounds? For asking you to back up your accusations? For expecting you to do your job with a shred of professionalism? The guards edge closer. Hardy stands up slowly, deliberately, his movements calm and controlled. This is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. I came here to discuss my work, and I'm being escorted out for insisting on integrity. Think about that. He looks straight into the camera now, breaking the fourth wall entirely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you ask for accountability in modern media. Instead of facts, you get rumors. Instead of honest dialogue, you get ambushes. And when you demand evidence, they send security. Stephanopoulos, sweating and flustered, mutters something to his crew, but Hardy doesn't wait. He turns, still speaking, as he walks toward the edge of the set. Remember this moment, he says, steady and clear, because one day people will look back and see exactly how far morning television has fallen. The audience is frozen. Not a single clap, not a single sound, just stunned silence as Hardy walks off under his own power. The host sits slumped at the desk, shuffling his papers with shaking hands, visibly rattled. The director finally cuts to an unplanned commercial break. When the cameras return, the mood in the studio is broken. You can feel it. The interview isn't just over, and it's imploded, and everyone knows they've just watched something that will go down as one of the most brutal live takedowns in TV history. Hardy didn't just defend himself. He flipped the script, exposing the shallow tactics of a host who thought he could corner him, and he did it calmly, methodically, dismantling every vague accusation until there was nothing left. Now here's the real takeaway. This wasn't about Hardy losing his temper. This was about him refusing to let half-truths and empty sound bites define him. He forced accountability where there usually is none. He showed what happens when someone doesn't just sit quietly and play along, and in that moment you could see it on Stephanopoulos' face, the realization that he was completely outmatched. It's rare to see a celebrity turn the tables so completely on a journalist. Usually the guest plays it safe, dodging or deflecting. But Hardy didn't dodge. He didn't deflect. He went straight at the heart of the accusation, and in doing so exposed how shallow and unprepared the host really was. For the audience, the impact was undeniable. You could almost feel them shifting in their seats, unsure if they were watching an interview or a dismantling, and that's what made it unforgettable. The truth is, this wasn't just Hardy versus Stephanopoulos. It was Hardy versus an entire system that thrives on sensationalism. And in that arena, Hardy didn't just survive, he dominated. When he looked into the camera and told viewers, "Remember this moment," it wasn't just a throwaway line, it was a statement, a challenge to think twice about the kind of media we consume and the standards we accept. This is why the exchange went viral. This is why people still talk about it. Not because Hardy shouted or stormed off. He didn't. He stayed calm, precise, and relentless. He refused to be painted into a corner by vague accusations with no foundation. And George Stephanopoulos, he was left exposed, his usual polished control slipping away on live television, his fallback phrases collapsing under Hardy's insistence on specifics. That contrast, Hardy's composure against Stephanopoulos' unraveling, is what made the moment historic. The camera lingers for just a few seconds longer than usual, showing Stephanopoulos fumbling with his notes, his hands visibly shaking. It's the image of a man who just lost control of his own show. And in contrast, Hardy walking off calmly without raising his voice leaves an impression that words alone couldn't. The aftermath speaks for itself. Clips of the exchange spread online almost instantly. Viewers rewatched it again and again, dissecting every pause, every stare, every moment where Hardy pushed back. The verdict from the public was unanimous. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was a reckoning. Hardy had done something few ever attempt on live television. He refused to play the game. He didn't let the narrative be written for him. He seized control, and in doing so, he exposed the cracks in an entire format of media built on control and manipulation. People tuned in expecting a lighthearted plug for a movie. What they got instead was a masterclass in holding someone accountable in real time in front of millions. And that's what makes this so powerful. It wasn't rehearsed, it wasn't polished, it was raw, unscripted, and brutally honest. That's why audiences couldn't look away. Because deep down, viewers recognize how rare it is to see someone refuse to bend to the system. This wasn't about promoting a film anymore. This was about principle, about refusing to be misrepresented, about standing firm in the face of vague attacks and demanding truth instead of rumors. And whether you agree with Hardy or not, you can't deny the impact of what he did. He set a standard. He showed that you don't have to let yourself be cornered by accusations without evidence. You can fight back, not by shouting, not by losing control, but by demanding clarity, specifics, and honesty. That's the lesson here. For the audience at home, the silence in that studio said everything. You could feel the discomfort of the crew, the stunned stillness of the crowd, the unraveling of a host who thought he had the upper hand. That silence was louder than any applause. It was the sound of people realizing they were witnessing something they weren't supposed to see. And maybe that's why it stuck with so many. Because it wasn't polished entertainment, it was truth, unsanitized, unplanned, undeniable. So when you think back on that moment, Hardy staring across the desk, his voice low but unshakable, Stephanopoulos crumbling under the weight of his own empty words, remember what it really showed. The power of refusing to accept weak narratives. Hardy didn't just protect his own reputation that day. He gave a lesson in accountability. He reminded everyone watching that words matter, preparation matters, integrity matters. And he made sure the audience wouldn't forget it. That's why people still talk about this exchange. That's why it's not just another interview lost in the archives. It was more than entertainment. It was a turning point. And maybe that's the real takeaway. In a world full of noise, the voice that cuts through is the one that refuses to be silenced by convenience, by shortcuts, by empty scripts. Tom Hardy cut through. He walked away, yes, but not in defeat. He walked away in victory, leaving behind a set, a host, and an entire audience with nothing but silence and questions. And that silence still echoes. So, what about you? What did you take from this? Did Hardy go too far, or was he simply refusing to back down from a game that was rigged from the start? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear what part of Hardy's stand hit you the hardest. And if you want more deep dives into the moments where celebrities break the script and refuse to play along, make sure you subscribe, share this with someone who needs to see it, and stay tuned. Because this was just one of those rare moments where the mask slips and the truth shows itself live on air.